Hello, it's Cryptolyze. I hope you are well this Monday, 11 September 2023. We're meeting today to talk about MINA protocol's crypto. As usual, we will dissect it into two parts, a fundamental part where we will come back to what MINA is, and a technical part where we will project ourselves in the short, medium, long term on purchase prices, sales prices for this rather special protocol, and it starts right away. So MINA protocol is a bit of a special protocol. Above all, it is a blockchain which is level 1, which really aims to provide tools to be able to develop decentralized applications which have at the heart of themselves the notion of data protection and of privacy. It's really very important, and they use this notion of zero knowledge proof to be able to ensure privacy. So the zero knowledge proof, we have already talked about it a lot. It's the ZK. We hear a lot about whether it's about rollups, whether it's about the layers of Ethereum. Overall, it's a proof cryptographic which allows something to be validated without knowing this something, nor without knowing if it is true. It's really a mathematical proof. The best way to explain it is to take a little time and define that we know a password. We want to verify that someone knows. A word exactly, this someone is asked to enter a cave. This cave, for example, is a circle in which there is here in the middle a blockage in which we will ask for the password. If the person enters on the right side and exits on the left side, it implies that they know the password. There you have it, a very simple example. So it doesn't happen that way, but in this case, it is a cryptographic proof, a mathematical proof which allows this to be done. So it's something that requires a lot of calculations to be able to prove this part, and it's something that works very well, and we talk about it a lot in terms of blockchains. The other strong point is that MINA defines itself as being the smallest blockchain, because thanks to this notion of zero knowledge proof, it encapsulates the previous images, therefore the evolution of its blockchain in the new image, and so on. The best image that I find to explain this is this representation. That is to say that we will have a first part which will be encapsulated in a second part, which will be encapsulated in a last part. Or even these photography images in which we will have a photograph of a photograph of a photograph of a photograph. Imagine a little bit these images. I think you have already seen on Twitter or on other networks, these images which in fact, when we zoom in, we see another image, and we continue to zoom in. We still have another image, and so on. Something that is really intertwined. And that's MINA's strength. That's MINA's goal. It's to actually create the technology necessary to be able to move from a blockchain that is 300 gigas to a blockchain that is 22 kilobits. So something that's just ridiculous in terms of weight. And even this technology has the aim behind it because it is based on ZK proof, to be able to offer the possibility of having a blockchain which is 100% privacy, with precisely the notion of data protection. They want to go even further because they define themselves as being a protocol which will provide management and which will transform the management of identifications on the web, Web 2, Web 3, Web 1, whatever the web in general. And that is their goal. And that can be seen a little bit in the new image that they're trying to have, in which we had this image before. And now we have an image where we're really building a layer of protection for Web 3. And that's important because it implies that we are moving away from this notion of a simple blockchain, and we are going to go much further. And this is also seen in its operation. That is to say that it has been used since 2021 at the Polygon level, and that we have works that are being built on it. So next to it, we have MINA protocol. MINA protocol is a token in which it is inflationary. We already have the max supply, which is already almost maxed in relation to the total supply, but there is no max supply. Okay, this is something that is going to be highly inflationary. As we can see from this evolution, therefore, from this graph, we can clearly see that we have an injection of liquidity. Currently, we are around 12 in terms of inflation, and it will decrease drastically little by little to reach 7%. 7% being precisely to pass the 48 months after the initial block. So we are going to arrive at something which will stagnate at 7% inflation, which is little but at the same time a lot at the same time, or even what it will be the denomination. Why is it a lot? Because we must understand that generally this incentive is used for what? To validate, to pay the people who will produce the blocks and the people who will build the snarks. Snarks being proof precisely of validity. We understand that this is what is based on the notion of zero knowledge proof. It is the snarks, and this is what requires a lot, really, of resources. And therefore, obviously, it has a cost. The most dependent in terms of cost will really be the snarks. And besides the fact of producing a block, it requires almost nothing because we will take the snarks that have been made, we will compose the block, and we will validate the block. So it's something that is very simple and very inexpensive, whereas the snark producer part requires a lot of performance. So obviously there is a need to have an incentive. And what we must understand is that at present, there are still quite few ecosystems. Even if they launched a major campaign this year to be able to promote through incentives, applications, which are also starting to appear little by little, but it still remains relatively weak. For me, I consider that we are more in a form of POC, therefore of proof of concept, of showing that it works and that we can develop in this way. I also think that they are switching little by little, saying that they will bring specialization, a specialization in data compression and a specialization alongside in the notion of privacy integrated into a classic ecosystem through the ZK in the H-proof. And that's where I'm starting to get news that's starting to fall into place on this side. And I even think that within a year, we're going to start getting news on partnerships with certain blockchains for develop the solutions proposed by MINA directly integrated into the protocols. And it will be logical at the same time. We finished in the fundamental part in attack. The technical part, which is relatively complicated in terms at the level of MINA in the sense where we had a launch which was really valued with a huge profit taking in which we broke and dropped very strongly. We found ourselves in a lowered ARST jump. So here we are in a distribution to potentially do a mutate here. So we will have to be very careful once again because we have behind a valuation which is inflationary, and it will take time to go back up because we are inflationary, because we do not yet have an ecosystem which is developed. And we are not yet in a marketing area that is excessively strong. So we will have to wait at MINA's level. This is the principle given that it is a technology that is under development and that we are really very early for MINA owners. So what is interesting to see is that we have the implementation of this wake-up distribution. We are indeed in the sign of weakness, and we are going to zoom into this sign of weakness in which we still see that we have something which is relatively solid and which is rather positive. In the sense that we really made a batch on June 13th, 2022, therefore at the level of Cessus, which is something classic, we made a lot here on September 26th, mainly following the breakout which was linked here of FTX, in which we had the first bearish impulse. We retraced very strongly. FTX broke and we practiced precisely very low in the sense that many had lateralized. MINA sank. And behind it, we had a very nice bullish reaction, which was made until 13 February 2023. To precisely give a first break to the structures, which is interesting to see, here a lowered body, so the structuring breakoff itself has been invalidated, but we have a first bullish intention, which we note at the market level. And then we went to a lower point with behind the establishment of an accumulation once again here. So for me, we are more in the construction of a spring, which itself is being constructed in a form of additional spring. So we are really in the spring of spring. And I have my golden zone, which is around 0.32 to fetch, even very low here in 0.26. When we look at the bearish impulse that has taken place, we will look for 1.618 in the 0.31. So for me, it's not over. Unfortunately, MINA will continue to sink, and what we will have to validate is when we have a pattern of this style. That we will have a form of lateralization, therefore not a form of bearish lateralization as we have here, really a form of classic lateralization in which we are able to determine a high band and a low band, and in which we will have here a bullish break, a retest, and an acceleration. There we will have a signal to tell ourselves that in fact we will have something going. As long as we don't have that, it implies that we will continue to sink. Why? Because we don't have an ecosystem, because currently we are at the end of the bar market. We are entering a phase of lethargy, and we have no application. Well, very few application on MINA, so very few concrete users. So obviously we are building and we are diluting the token because of inflation. So we are in something relatively classic. What we are going to aim for as a target is very interesting because there are key levels. There are really two key levels. The first for me will be here in the $3 and $4, in which we are going to have a lot of people going out, in which we are going to be overexposed, which would be rather logical because we are already at 0.37. That implies that we are already at X10. So we would have profit taking plus a reduction in exposure for those who are precisely in this area. Zone, which was important in the sense that we entered the spot zone for the first time before coming out and breaking back bearish. It was that time when it was April 2022, when there were still a lot of people who were investing heavily. So on this, you're going to tell me, but why people? Are there very few people who are stuck here? Well, quite simply because the people who are stuck there have capitulated in this first bearish impulse and in this second bearish impulse. I tend to think that the volumes there are quite low, and for me, it will really be a target in which we will take a lot of profit if we arrive in this area. Will we be able to take the AT8? I want to say yes in the long term, really long term. Will it be done on this boomerang? Will it happen on the next one? I don't know. In any case, above all, MINA must be able to find a place in this ecosystem. They need to be able to find a developed ecosystem and have decentralized applications and users on them to be able to develop. Currently, this is not the case. We are really in the development phase of a project which is extremely early. When we look at what our friend Nevitalik Buterin is telling us, he considers that this technology, so he is not talking about MINA, he is really talking about the notion of snark, and it is something that will transform from here 10 to 15 years. 10 to 15 years. There you go, and that was in 2021. So we still have time, we just have to plan ahead and know whether this project interests us or not. Will we have a short-term valuation with a next bull run which is going to take place? I tend to say yes, but it will also depend on to what extent MINA will transform its image and will be able to build an ecosystem and applications which will be able to attract people and which will know how to alongside really using the real game, really using MINA's technology. And knowing if we can't place MINA on an additional technology, what we could call a layer 3, or see what we call an interconnection protocol to offer its notion of privacy, its layer of privacy on top of other applications. There we could have something that would be very nice, but here it's me who is speculating, so we'll be careful. We don't have any news in this sense yet, official. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a little like. And if you like this type of content, I'm sure you will love the video that I did on Sunday. I'll give you the link here in which you will find this golden zone a little bit for many blockchains. You will have all the information that is in there. And we'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. for the daily news.